Hello you guys. So on today's video, I wanted to talk about the concept of self-awareness and autism. I want to make it very, very clear that self-awareness, I think, is a good trait, but too much of something good can be bad. Too much of anything could be bad. I think too much of self-awareness could definitely be negative, right? And so I want to actually challenge autistic folks who may be relying way too much on self-awareness, and that self-awareness is actually, in a sense, crippling you, to perhaps lean a little bit away from it, not in a sense where you completely abandon self-awareness altogether, because I do think being self-aware is an important aspect of being part of community and society, but rather taking some energy, time, and effort away from being extremely self-aware and putting that time and energy more into being introspective and allowing yourself to simply exist and experience life. We want to bring a little bit more balance into our existence, right? One thing I really want to highlight here is the difference between self-awareness and introspection, because those two things on the surface may seem very similar and may seem like the same thing, but they are very, very different. So self-awareness is the state of focusing on yourself and analyzing the world around you. Self-awareness can involve comparing your thoughts, feelings, and actions to the people around you and society as a whole. So self-awareness can be a tool that we use to help us understand what others want from us and what the world wants from us. Introspection, on the other hand, is the act of looking inward to analyze your own thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. Introspection can help you understand yourself and the reasons behind your feelings and behaviors. So introspection can help us understand what we want for ourselves, from others, and from life. Think about it this way. Self-awareness is asking yourself, what do I have to do? While introspection is asking yourself, what do I want to do? I oftentimes find that society really hones in on the concept of self-awareness as a strength. It's almost like if there is a person who isn't self-aware, there is this collective knowledge that everyone knows about except that one person. And I feel like that is probably an autistic person's worst nightmare, especially if you're a high masking autistic, right? The idea that there's something that everyone knows about except you. And a lot of the times, I think for us, not being self-aware enough leads to a lot of negative and sometimes even traumatic experiences, because when you're autistic, you're inherently someone who processes differently than the social norm and the social collective that you were born into. And because of that, you almost have to teach yourself to be 4 times more self-aware than an average person. I feel like there is a big difference between being a non-autistic person and having self-awareness versus being an autistic person who had to learn self-awareness in order to survive. And a big aspect of what I think is different about being an autistic person who is self-aware is the inability to turn off that self-awareness and the propensity to always judge yourself on the behalf of other people. It's never ending. It impacts your mental, emotional health, your physical health, and in turn, it impacts your core values and who you think you are and how you operate, how you show up in your life. In a way, leads a lot of autistic people to stray away from who they actually are. The saddest part as well is they don't know what their strengths are, their actual unique strengths, because we're so focused on constantly observing ourselves from this third person point of view and how we fit into our environment and how we fit into society, rather than putting ourselves back into our body, experiencing our life through first person point of view and living our life from that internal compass. When you're already an outlier because you're autistic and you're already not normal, right? And you're using self-awareness to weigh yourself against what is normal, what is right. You see the trap there where you start to see yourself as being extremely dysfunctional and wrong, whereas introspection is not necessarily there to judge yourself. It's there to ask the why. Why do I like this? Why am I this way? Why are other people that way? What do I feel about it? How do I want to express myself? What do I want to do about all of this information, right? I feel like introspection, in a sense, gives you freedom of choice, whereas self-awareness traps you into a select amount of things to do, and those may not be options that you even align with, depending on who you are and how compatible you are to your environment and the social norm that you live in, right? And so I think this is the reason why it's important to practice both, not just one, because on one hand, you have to understand how to be a part of the community and what your role is in the community. The introspection comes in terms of, how do I feel about that? And what part do I want to play in this role? Is that something I could continue doing, or is it not? Because if you don't have introspection, you will end up being in environments that will be toxic to who you are and your own well-being, because you're not able to arrive at the conclusion that you're suffering there. And you will never get to experience the potential of being in environments that actually suit your needs and allows you to, in turn, thrive and become the most functional version of yourself. I often use the metaphor when describing neurodivergence as you have a very specific ecosystem that you are made to thrive in, and you need to give yourself an opportunity to find what that ecosystem is. And a part of that is figuring out what parts of your current ecosystem makes you dysfunctional. So becoming aware of the fact that you might be a tropical frog that's been trying to survive in a desert, and realizing the dysfunction and the struggle of surviving in an ecosystem that wasn't made for you, and ultimately doing what it takes to give yourself an opportunity to go into a rainforest and see what it means to actually thrive in the ecosystem you're meant to thrive in. Because that's also a big part of being neurodivergent that I feel like people don't realize is it's not just about the ways that you're dysfunctional, right? I feel like more than anything, this whole journey is about figuring out what it means to become a functional person and realizing that you can, and doing whatever it takes to allow yourself to be functional, changing what you can change in your life, in your behaviors, in your routines to support what it means to be the most functional you, and to focus less on what dysfunctions you have and forcing yourself to continually try to function in ways you're not meant to, and realizing again and again how dysfunctional you are. Like, that is such a trap, and we need to continue to break out of it. We really do. So the next time you find yourself walking away from a situation, a person, an experience, asking yourself, did I say everything I needed to say? Did they understand what I was trying to explain? Did they understand me? Did I do good enough? Did I mess up? Did I miss something? Instead of thinking about all the ways that you have deviated from a social norm, ask yourself the question, was I kind? Was I understanding? Did I make them feel heard? Did I express myself in a way that feels good to me? Ask yourself what your core values are and the ways you're willing to express that. And so long as you're consistently honoring those things and what it means to be a kind person, that's all you're really able to do. And that's all you're really responsible for, is the truth. And I think that's something that's really, really difficult for us to hear, because we have been made responsible for other people's misunderstandings, programmings, hurt. It's easy to black sheep autistic folks, or folks who are neurodivergent and already different. We're easy targets in that sense. And so yes, it is really hard to be steadfast in your own self, your own intentions, your own expression of all of that, even despite other people misunderstanding it. But that's kind of something we just have to do for ourselves. We have to build a lot of self-assurance and strength within who we are. And a part of building that self-assurance is in a sense, not taking on other people's judgments of you and judging yourself on the behalf of others. And I think a part of that is brought on by that intense amount of self-awareness, right? You're self-aware enough to the point where you're watching yourself from other people's shoes and processing your actions and intentions from their point of view. And you're processing their own emotions towards you while also processing your own. You see how that could be very, very exhausting, but also damaging for you and your sense of self. I really want to encourage you guys to get used to the fact that you can only do what you need to do to honor being a good, kind person, whatever that means to you, and walk away being okay with that, despite what other people are going to say or how they're going to understand you. If they understand you, great. If they don't, that's their problem. Honestly, that's their responsibility to process why they misunderstood you or why it is hard for them to understand you. And it's their responsibility, if they need you to rectify that or clarify anything, to come to you and communicate, hey, I feel really off about this one thing you said or did. Can we talk about that? Did you mean to make me feel bad, or what was your intention, you know? But the thing is, if they don't come to you to talk about it or for you to clarify, they're probably not someone you want to spend time and energy on anyways, to try to rectify an internal issue that they're honestly not even willing to do for themselves. Be so okay with letting go of the responsibility to do emotional labor for other people. And a lot of the times, that's the amount of self-awareness we're practicing, is doing emotional labor for every single person in that room. And that is not something humans are meant to do. That's not something that we can do without it completely harming who we are, our relationship to ourselves, and honestly, our health. So practice some energetic hygiene, practice having your boundaries, and stop feeling guilty for it. It's actually good to have boundaries because it allows you to be a steadfast person in your life. It allows you to be the best part of yourself that you can be. It allows you to be more functional. It allows you to be more effective. That's what's ultimately best for yourself and the world, right? For you to be able to show up in the best capacity you can. And you just simply can't do that if you don't have boundaries. Again, instead of trying to ruminate on all the ways that you may have messed up or all the ways that you may have offended someone or what you could have done better, right? Just ask yourself, did you do your best to be kind and to be present? And despite making mistakes or no mistakes, as long as you're able to honor that consistently, again and again, that's all you can do. It doesn't mean you don't change as a person. It doesn't mean you're clueless and you're oblivious, right? It just means you're only taking responsibility over what's in your control. And if you learn something in an experience that you want to take with you, okay, I think I rambled a little bit too much in this last conversation, so I'm going to take more effort to listen and ask the other person questions in the next conversation. Leave it at that. Don't go into the trap of judging yourself and beating yourself up over the fact that you may have rambled more than you would have liked to, and tell yourself that you're a selfish, narcissistic, self-centered person. We don't need to beat ourselves up. We don't need to judge ourselves in order to be self-aware, in order to be a better person. With that being said, I want to leave you guys with a little bit of a thought exercise that you can comment down below. What are the harmful ways you practice self-awareness, and what are the ways that you could start to lean away from it and practice introspection instead? With that being said, thank you guys for tuning in on today's video. Make sure you take some time to drink water, eat some food, take yourself on a walk, stay regulated. I will see you guys on the next one. Take care.